Welcome, welcome. Jamie Hernandez here. I'm going live in my profile. I usually go live in Soul Healing for the Empathic Entrepreneur, which there are many trainings right now that you can dive into. So if you want to join that group, go ahead because there's lots and lots of deep dive trainings for you to enjoy. Some are somatic experiences and some are talks like this. And today's talk is called Who Are You Becoming? Who are we becoming? And I think the very first question to ask ourselves in who are we becoming, because we're always becoming something, someone, right? We're never the same. We're constantly evolving from when we were 3 to 13 to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 to 70. We're becoming an evolved aspect of ourselves. And I think the very first question we want to ask ourselves in this becoming is, are we walking the path of fear or are we walking the path of love? So just kind of like take that in. Am I walking the path of fear or am I walking the path of love? And of course, we're never going to always be in this love, blissful journey, but it's really good to kind of check in every once in a while and ask ourselves, because the fear path feels like, oh my God, but what if this? And what if that? And what if this goes wrong? And what if I'm not capable? What if I'm not enough? What if I'm not perfect? What if it doesn't work out? What if I get disappointed? What if I get hurt? What if, And so the fear sounds like that. And the truth of the matter is, we'll never know. We will never have certainty when we become, or we decide, or we go for, or we, jump, or we lead, we show up, we leave, we go. We're never going to have certainty. So we may as well accept that fact. And so when we choose a path of love, the path of love sounds like, oh my God, imagine if this, imagine if that, imagine. So we step into potential, we step into possibility. And again, it is all potential and it is all possibility, and it never works out exactly the way you think it's going to work out, does it? Right? When you go on a trip, when you, if you think about your most memorable moment in your life, or memorable trip you've taken, or the most memorable experience you've had, or training you've had, or person you've met, did it play out like you thought? Yes, maybe a lot of it did. And then also probably there were really amazing magical surprises. And so when we kind of step into that frequency of what if, then we open to possibility, we open to all potential, because it's all possible. So it's like, I'll give you an example. Like, I've told this story before, but like if we go, for example, to a party, and we think, oh my God, everybody at the party, I think they're really snobby, and I don't know if they're that friendly, and I don't really know if anybody's really gonna ask me like to dance or to like socialize with them. And we're going in that what if people don't like me, what if? And you walk in, we have a confirmation bias, right? So we're gonna, if people are in their kind of resting bitch face, I don't know if you've ever heard of that, they're just like in there, and then already our mind is like, oh, okay, yeah, oh yeah, that person's snobby, oh, that person doesn't look nice, and we're in that what if. And then if we stepped in with love, let's say, and the potential and the possibility, we're like, oh my God, okay, who's here? Oh my gosh, this is gonna be so fun. Oh, who do I get to meet? Who do I get to dance with? And our internal magnetism and emotion and facial expression expresses that. What do you think we're gonna receive? Like at least 8 times out of 10. When you're walking down the street and you're smiling at someone, most likely, not every single person, right? Because people are going through their own life and their own SHIT, right? But you're most likely going to receive back that smile, right? So there is something about walking the path of love that shifts the uncertainty or the not that it shifts where there's not going to be uncertainty and there's not going to be things that you know didn't expect or didn't like to happen in your experience, but it's going to hold the experience differently. Like, you know, maybe you missed a flight and you at the beginning you're like, oh God, this is the worst thing in the world, and all of a sudden you are sitting next to somebody that becomes your lifelong friend, or somebody who, you know, you've always wanted to meet. And then they're on the next flight with you. Do you see? Like, and I know you guys know this. I know you guys have experienced this kind of experience where we're in that possibility of potential. And you see this too with kids on a playground, right? If there's a kid and she's kind of looking down and feels like nobody's going to play with me, and like they're in that kind of you know, fear of being judged and criticized. But when they're like, hey everybody, who wants to play with me? And not everybody like people might be like, okay, weirdo, get away from me, you know, but there will be people that are like, me too, okay, right? So don't mistake that just because we walk the path of love, that it's going to be exactly as we expect. And everything is going to open up with, you know, with loving arms. For the most part, yeah. And then there's going to be interesting surprises, as you know, as life offers you. So when we are becoming, we want to ask ourselves that. Are we walking the path of fear, or are we walking out the path of love? Is it the what if or imagine if? Okay, so just see, and let me know in the comments what it is for you and what it is for you currently. Because again, it's like sometimes we're on this, you know, we're just naturally on this path of love, and we just, it's natural just because we've been taking care of ourselves. Maybe we've been around a lot of loving, supporting people. Maybe we're in the right like environment, and sometimes maybe we're not feeling well. Maybe we're having a chronic illness or whatever it is, and we're starting to go down the spiral of the path of fear. So just ask yourself in this moment, because we will always, you know, switch back and forth. Are we walking the path of love, or are we walking the path of fear in your day-to-day on a predominant basis? Which one is it? And so here's the next thing. Empower yourself by understanding that you are choosing. You are choosing to make a cup of tea. You are choosing to walk outside. You are choosing to eat this. Nobody is forcing you. Like literally, nobody's taking you by the mouth and jugging that whatever thing that you're eating today, or, you know. So empower yourself and start to understand the difference between conscious choice and unconscious choice. Unconscious choice feels like, oh God, the world is just like the weather. It's raining outside. Oh my God, you know, it sucks. It's not like yesterday where it was sunny. Like, life is not doing that to you. Do you know? We're just choosing to see the raindrops like that, you know? And yeah, maybe it's sucky, or maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe it's great because like we're washing off all the dust and the plants are being watered. I don't have to water my grass, right? So it's like these conscious choices. We are choosing. Physically, we are choosing to do what we do with our body. Mentally, we are choosing, and this is the most challenging one. Mentally, we are choosing our thoughts. We are choosing our thoughts, right? And energetically, we are choosing where to put our energy. So empower yourself. And even the practice can be like, oh, I am choosing this. So like, let's just say whatever. You're in a shitty mood and you don't feel like being Mr. and Mrs. Positive. Choose it. Just say, I'm just like fucking tired, you know? And I don't feel like doing my mantras and affirmations and all this business, right? Choose it. But give yourself a conscious choice. Okay, I'm going to choose this for maybe the next hour. And then I'll choose something different. Because the next point I want to make is that our thoughts and our emotions have an electromagnetic field. It is a particle and a wave. Okay? Our thought forms. Our thought forms. So meaning to say, we have a thought, and then it's like a wave of thought, and then we form, becomes form and manifest. So we have thought forms, right? And so we want to understand that our thought and our emotion have a electrical magnetic field. And so when we consciously choose thought forms, understand that the thought form of like, oh, fucking everything sucks, is different from, okay, wow, what is the possibility today? You know, what is the potential today? Wow, this is so cool. Like, I have this huge tree in front of my house. Like, wow, it's offering me, you know, the shade. Oh, I get to, what if, like, I get to go do this, right? So the frequency, and you can even feel it, and you can even practice that. The frequency and the electrical magnetic field of your thought form differently, right? So we, by nature, as human beings, we have a negative bias. Okay, it's just the way we, for survival needs, because that's kind of the number one need. We kind of need to know the danger. We kind of need to know who is what and where is what. But then number two, then because we're human, then we can also enjoy our life and experience our life the way we want to live it. We have free will to live the way we want to live. We, as a species here on Earth, have free will. A bee or a spider or something like that doesn't have free will. All spiders, like, I'm not saying every single spider, but the spider species predominantly live the same. Birds live the same. Similarly, bees are all doing the same thing. They're not like, oh, you know what? I don't feel like being a bee today, so I'm gonna go be a butterfly, right? So we as human beings have free will. So if we are going to wield our will, and we can understand that our thought forms, and we can understand that our thoughts and emotions have an electrical magnetic field, there's a particle and there's a wave, and we are creating that particle, because if you think about anything that has been created, it has been created first by thought, no? Right? Like when we decided we want to figure out how to make something roll, like the wheel, we're like, oh my God, okay, yeah, look at that round thing. Oh, okay, it spins. Okay, it's rolling down the mountain. Oh, okay. And it starts with a thought. And then we start to form that thought with momentum. So our thought forms create a different vibration and a different frequency. Frequency is the rate, and vibration is the intensity. So we can understand that our thought forms form differently and feel differently. So we can go back to point number 2. We then need to consciously choose. So whenever we start to see our negative bias, we can start to get out of the what if to like imagine if. Right? You're walking down you're walking in a forest and you're like, oh my God, it's muddy. Oh God, what if my shoes get all crappy and dirty? Or imagine if I walk and then all of a sudden I get to see like the birds, and I get to breathe the fresh air, and I just have this time, this space and this freedom to like enjoy my moment and my solitude. Yeah. So thoughts and emotions are magnetic waves. And so we have to understand that we're making an empowered choice. And so we have to start to understand, what part am I playing in my internal and external world? What part am I playing? Because Pam Gregory, I was listening to her today, and she said, when you look in the mirror and you're looking like, and you're saying like, oh God, look at your hair, and this is so ugly, and this is whatever, right? And you expect the mirror to change, then you're living from that place where you're living from external to internal, which doesn't work. Oh, it's raining outside. I wish it didn't rain. Well, I'm sorry. Like, the clouds and the ocean and the moon and everything like are not going to shift. They're not going to shift just because you don't feel like it today, right? And so same thing when you look in the mirror. When you look in the mirror and you expect the mirror to change, it doesn't work that way. So we can decide from working from internal to external, right? Am I going to decide to smile? Maybe it doesn't feel necessarily natural at the beginning. Maybe when I walk into the party and I walk into a group of people or whatever it is, I may not be feeling that and I may not see people, in that awareness, but I choose that. So I change the mirror because that's what this experience is. It's a mirror of our reality. I forgot the name of that scientist, but he says, we don't experience life as it is. We experience life as we see it. We don't experience life as it is. We experience life as we see it. This tree behind me, I'm experiencing it as green, as prickly, as, tall. But I don't see its oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange. I don't see the photosynthesis. I don't see the tiny little molecules that are vibrating to create a tree. Like, I don't see that, even though that's the reality. I don't see the roots receiving the nutrients from the ground. I don't see all the worms. I don't see all the bugs. I don't see all the birds living in there. Like, there's the sap. I don't see any of that. So humans experience life as we see it. And that's so important to understand, right? Because then we can start to understand, well, what if, the imagination of I talk about this a lot when I teach yoga. It's like, you are a living miracle. You literally, right now, your cells, trillions of cells, are coagulating. Each cell has their own job to do, and they're all these living organisms vibrating together to create this human body that can think, that can feel, that can move, that is living on this water rock planet, spinning God knows how fast in space with who knows how many multi-universes. And here we are. Like, that's the actual reality. That's the actual reality. And we are not necessarily experiencing and seeing life as it is. We're seeing life as we see it. I don't really like the shirt I wore today. People around me, they're taking up too much room. And why is that person's yoga mat so close to mine? Like, when it's like, oh my God, guys, we are alive, we're not on this planet anyway. This aspect of being human, we are, it has a beginning and an end. So to see everyone, to be with everyone is a precious moment. And we all know that if you've experienced loss, we all wake up to that reality of how precious life is. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, where you've had a loss of somebody and then all of a sudden you go back out in the world and just experience things differently because you start to recognize the reality of how things are and not how we see it, where we see somebody and, oh yeah, hi, I am, and we take it for granted. So that's a really beautiful contemplation and interesting contemplation of understanding, how am I seeing things and what is the actual reality? What is the actual miracle? What is the actual mystery that we're living here? And I always say this, like, we are living a life that is simultaneously beautiful, awe-inspiring, amazing, miraculous, and painful, and intense and hard, simultaneously. So we have to continue to choose. Well, what is the internal reference point? What part am I creating? What part am I, how did I ask it? What part are you playing in your internal and external reality? And the external reality is a mirror. So I hope that's clear. Let me know what you think in that comment, in the comments. And then we want to forgive ourselves. Like, just because we have these aspirations and we have all of these dreams and all these, we're never going to be the thing that we want to be right now. We're not going to see it first. We're going to believe it first, right? If somebody wants to become a ballet dancer, they have to believe in it and then practice and take the actions towards it. So they have to believe, okay, well, I watched this beautiful film called Manu last night. And it is a true story. A boy from Kenya, ever since 5 years old, in Nigeria, nobody, it wasn't even accepted to be a ballet dancer. And for a male and a young boy to be a ballet dancer, he would get bullied. But he believed in it, and he saw himself. He saw himself on stage, and he took action. He practiced always dancing, and all of a sudden, this really reputable, famous school or I don't know if it's famous, but this well-known school in Elmhurst, London, asked him if he'd like to come study there, just because they saw his passion and his raw talent. Why? Because he believed it. If he looked around to see it, okay, here we are in Nigeria, everybody's doing their thing, nobody's into ballet dancing, especially men. We're just living our life like it's not part of even the scene here. And yet he had the belief, the internal belief, and the seeing and the knowing that that's where his path is supposed to go. And at least at this moment in his life, he's still young. Who knows how it's going to evolve? But that's his path right now. And all of a sudden, somebody calls him to create a scholarship for him to go to this school in London. What? All because it started with an internal belief. He couldn't change the mirror outside, but he could change the belief inside. And even though he got bullied, even though everyone made fun of him, even though, it wasn't accepted amongst his culture, he still continued, and that's that innocence of the child. And so, when we are becoming, and this is the last point I'll make, I think, when you're becoming, allow yourself to be in the innocence of a child, because that's where creation spawns, right? He's a child that he just always knew. And so it's that innocence is the chalice of creativity. And what did I want to say? When we can come back to that innocence, here's what I wanted to say. It's how would, and especially if you do it from a child's perspective, how would the person you're becoming, how would they move? How would they talk? What questions would they ask? What actions would they take? I was watching this movie, and he was watching this principal dancer, and his innocence, you know what he asked him? He's like, how do I become like you? And the principal dancer was like, well, you work hard, you have passion, you be yourself. If he was in that kind of, assumption that, oh my gosh, this principal dancer just thinks I'm this no one and I don't know anything and I'm just a small student and whatever, he would have not asked that beautiful, innocent, authentic question. He asked, how do I become you? That's what he said. How do I become you? And so you want to ask yourself that question. How do I become me? The one that is seeing through the lens of love, the one that is choosing the path. So in your manifestation and in your creation, you want to start to ask yourself, what would the becoming version of me choose? What would they ask? Who would they talk to? Like, what, out of the innocence of a child, how would they be? And this child that I was watching in the movie, like, he was dancing all the time, and people like were watching him, making fun of him. They're like, why is he dancing like a girl? Like, and he just embodied this magnificent, beautiful, passionate, hardworking dancer. So did he create the here's a funny, interesting thing. Did he create the principal dancer who told him hard work, passion, and be yourself? Or did that principal dancer create him? Which one was it? And the truth is, they created each other, because they were vibing at a frequency that was magnetic, and they magnetized themselves towards each other because they had the same thoughts, the same emotions, the same feeling. I know that's kind of trippy, but I think when you meet people who are like, have that same vibe and mindset, you're like, what the, where have you been my whole life? Why? Because you've been living that from the internal perspective. So, yes, those are my points on who are we becoming of this training of contemplation. Number one, I'll just review. Number one, are you living the path right now? Because again, it changes moment to moment depending on what's going on in your life, right? Depending on what's going on in your environment. Like, there's no judgment, but just ask yourself, are you choosing the path of fear right now? What if, oh my gosh, it's not enough. I'm not capable. I'm not perfect. I don't belong. Or are you choosing the path of love? Imagine if, and asking from that, oh my God, that beautiful innocence of a child. How do I become you? How do you become you? And understand your thoughts and your emotions are magnetic waves. Thought forms, right? When you imagine the house that you're building, for example, if you're building a house, it's a thought. And then we form it. Then we pick the colors. Then we go out and we buy the brick or the floor or the whatever it is, you know? And then we build it, or we have somebody build it for us, right? So thought forms. Thoughts are magnetic waves. And so we want to understand, well, what kind of frequency, what kind of vibration? Frequency is the rate, vibration is the intensity. What frequency and vibration are we sending out there? And understand, if we're choosing from fear, it looks like blame, shame, or guilt. And the world is doing it to us. And if we're choosing from love, it looks like joy, it looks like harmony, it looks like laughter, it looks like innocence, it looks like creation. It looks like, imagine if, like that child. So number three, empower yourself by understanding you're choosing. You are choosing everything. You're choosing to listen to this. You're choosing, and what does that do, right? What are your choices? What are the consequences of your choices? I'm choosing to what? With your body, with your mind, with your energy. What are you choosing? Empower yourself and then create the practice and say, oh, I'm choosing this. I'm choosing to smile. I'm choosing to dance. I'm choosing to call a good friend of mine. I'm choosing, right? And know that just because you follow the path of love, your expectations will usually be blown out of the water. And some things will be completely a surprise. Some things will be like totally in alignment. And so it doesn't mean that just because you choose the path of love that there's not going to be uncertainty and there's not going to be adversity. So that's important to know. So We may as well choose love, because even if there's fear, there's still going to be uncertainty. And that's the thing that fear is trying to do, is like, can I be certain? Can I get out of the adversity? Can I get out of the pain? Well, even if you choose a path of love, there's still going to be adversity. There's still going to be pain and grief and loss. And there's still going to be hardship. But there's also going to be beauty. There's also going to be miracles. There's also going to be magic. And you know this when you've gone on trips, or when you've chosen things spontaneously, and all of a sudden things kind of work out. Think of a time where that's happened, right? Or it's like you chose something that you really love, and all of these like little surprises, people you've never thought you would met before, situations you never thought you'd been in. Like if you've ever traveled on your own before, you know that that's kind of what happens. And of course, there's like the day-to-day mundane things where you're like, shit, I forgot my passport at I'm at the hotel, I have to go back, like, oh, I missed my flight. Like there's still going to be that, right? But there's also going to be the miracles and the magic and the joy and the openness and potential of possibility. When we narrow ourselves to like everyone is an a-hole in this world, then you will only see that. That's a negative bias. If you're only thinking of red cars, you will only see most likely red cars, right? So, we can't change the mirror by trying to erase the mirror. We have to move from the internal to the external. And that's the last point one of the last points I was making is, what part are you playing in your internal and external relationship? We have to take back our power. Nobody takes it from us. I was on a call with a client, and he was saying like, oh, people force me. And of course, I'm keeping their identity, anonymous. So, nobody really knows who this person is, but it's like, people are forcing me to do this thing. And it's like, are they forcing you, or are you allowing them to shift you and allow that guilt to kind of affect your choices, right? So nobody takes your power, you give it. So empower yourself by knowing that you make choices. Nobody takes your power, you give your power. That's something really important to understand. And lastly, like the power of a child, I forget what the scientist's name is, but we were talking about like, we see things, we don't see things as they are, we see things as we see them. So we must start to see them with the innocence of a child, like I was talking about. How that child who nothing around him would make him believe that he's going to be like this amazing ballet dancer. There is no evidence other than his own internal belief that of course was challenged so many times by being bullied, by his environment, by people who didn't really believe that he'd make it. And it still kind of haunts him. But yet there's still that internal role that we are playing and we are choosing. So my suggestion is to choose from that child and become who you're becoming through movement, through feeling, through what would the becoming me choose. And so that's what I leave you for the rest of the day and the rest of the week and the rest of your life is, as you consciously make more conscious choices, your empowered choices, what would the becoming me choose? Because the old you is the old you, right? The old you, the one that you're unbecoming, is no longer the one who you're evolving into. So what would the becoming you choose? And then you make that choice. Okay? And it's not going to be perfect. You're not always going to choose in a way that there's not going to be uncertainty, adversity, hardship, or whatever, all that. But at least we know we're choosing the path of love, and that frequency, it just changes everything. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments what your biggest takeaway is. Who are you becoming? I think it's a huge time in our moments. You know, we had a huge once in a lifetime experience here with the sun and the moon. You know, some people say like, oh, it's just the sun and the moon. It's just the thing that gives us life, the thing that moves, has a gravitational pull on this earth, that moves the water, that keeps us alive. So something's happening, guys. All right. You know, there's so much science and astrological evidence behind all of this, you know, that we're not going to get into right now. But there's shifts. And if you're empathic, then there are shifts. Now, if you are interested in being in a container where you are staying true to who you're becoming and you're staying accountable and you have certain practices that allow you to continue to be who you're becoming, then DM me. Let me know, Jamie, I'm ready for a breakthrough yoga coaching call. And we'll talk about, we'll look at where the coding of how you're stuck in your body, your mind, and your energy. Because every time we're moving towards something, there's always like the unconscious beliefs, the unconscious coding in our body that hold us back. That's what's always kind of holding us back. So on the actual call, what we're going to do is look at where that has been imprinted in your body, where it's been imprinted in your mind, where it's been imprinted in your energy field. And we're going to move towards, and that's going to be like the first thing, the domino effect that affects everything else. So I'm going to put a link to the free call in the comments, and you can also see the program that I'm offering, Awakening the Soul. And if you are ready to wake up to your soul's mission, to your soul's purpose, whatever that may be, and again, it doesn't have to be this big grandiose thing, but just living in your alignment and living your truth. And you want a container that's going to hold you accountable and give you tools and strategies. And when the SHIT hits the fan, that your coach, we're going to work through that and process those emotions. And we're going to talk about the next obvious action, the next step, and the next strategy to continue to help you evolve, because it's hard. It is challenging to develop a life you love, especially when you're just kind of in your own vortex without necessarily going out and getting help. Just like that boy who said, how do I become like you? So if you are in that place where you are becoming who you're becoming, then DM me, let me know, Jamie, I'm ready for a breakthrough coaching call, and we're going to move towards that. So I'll put the link in the comments, and I will see you guys next week, 11 a.m. I think for the summer, I'm going to change it to noon, and I'm going to go back and forth on my profile and in the Souls Healing for entrepreneurs, empathic entrepreneurs. So I'll see you next week. DM me if you want a breakthrough yoga coaching call, and let me know your biggest takeaways in the comments. Bye, guys. See you next week.